I'm Dr. Mary Ruart, Chair of Liberty International, and I'm happy to welcome you to this webinar where we will be talking about the Digital Nomad Tax Freedom Index that has been developed here at Liberty International. And María Londoño has been, I think, the person who's really coordinated all this. And we're going to have her telling you about a little bit about the index and asking questions of our wonderful panel. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our panelists. And of course, the first one I'm going to talk about is our hostess, María. María Alejandra Londoño is a research lead and advocate for individual freedom. She specializes in tax policies and global mobility. And she developed this index in collaboration with Liberty International. And she focuses on public policy and advancing the philosophy of liberty. Our panelists today, our first one is Per Bylund, who is a board member for Liberty International, and he's a Swedish economist, professor, and author, specializing in Austrian economics. He's known for his work on entrepreneurship, economic theory, and market processes. And he's currently a professor at Oklahoma State University. He's written several books and articles exploring how markets function and how individuals drive economic progress. He's written a wonderful book, How to Think About the Economy, a primer, where he explains in a concise and very accessible way how Austrian economics works. And it's really nice because if you're unfamiliar with that and you don't want to get too technical, Per explains it very well. And we also have Christoph Heuermann, who's a German entrepreneur, world traveler, and founder of Staatenlos. He's known for promoting personal sovereignty and financial independence through international tax strategies and global mobility. So we'll really want to learn about that. He's for reducing the state control over individuals' lives, and really Liberty International is all about that too. He talks about things like flag theory, second citizenships, legal tax minimization, and he shares his experience of living this nomadic digital lifestyle while helping others achieve freedom through the means that he uses. I want to give you the website for Staatenlos. It's STAATENLOS.ch. I'll repeat that because we want you to get that. STAATENLOS.ch. And we're hoping that Michael Halis can join us. He's having some technical difficulties right now. He's a consultant, entrepreneur, and experienced digital nomad who specializes in helping remote workers optimize their business and lifestyle strategies. With a background in business and a passion for global travel, he's really able to provide insights into leveraging technology, tax optimization, and global mobility to create sustainable, location-independent careers, which in today's society is probably a good thing to know about. So anyhow, I want to share with you that this project is part of a new research program with Liberty International that María is a prominent and right now possibly I guess I would say a primary person in that endeavor. And Liberty International has a lot of things going on. I hope you can get to our website. It's liberty-intl.org. That's liberty-intl.org. And check us out if you're not familiar with us already. And one more thing I'd like to mention before I turn this over to María, something you should know about. We have annual world conferences, and they're usually overseas. But this year, in November, for the first time in 14 years, we are going to be in the US. in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So if you don't want to travel internationally to go to one of our conferences, this is the year to come. And you can learn more about that at the website I just mentioned, or we have, pages that are just dedicated to this conference. And those pages are called LIWC24.us. LI as in Liberty International, WC as in World Conference, 24 as in 2024.us. LIWC24.us. So I hope you'll join us there. And now I'm going to turn this over to Maria so she can talk with the panel and ask appropriate questions. Thank you.
Mary, thank you so much for that amazing introduction, and thank you so much for your energy today. I know it's your birthday, so happy birthday, and thank you for taking the time to come here and join us on this live panel and on this virtual event. Thank you so much to everyone who connected, who took time out of their days to be here with us. It's a really special day for all of us to show this index, and especially to be sharing with you the things that we have found on this journey of digital nomads and tax freedom. We have an amazing panel, as María already mentioned it. But before that, I wanted to take a time. I see we have 135 assistants, and because we are Liberty International and we're talking about digital nomads and globalization a little bit, I would like to know from what countries are you guys connecting from? If you can maybe type it on the chat, that'll be great information for us. I think you guys can do that. If you're connected from the US, from Colombia, from Germany, from Sweden, where are you coming from? That'll be great for us to know as panelists as well, and to welcome you into this amazing event. So let's start, and I'm gonna ask Christoph and Per to come into the camera and show your faces. Mike, if you were able to connect, so please come and also activate your camera and your microphone so that we can start this conversation. Can we have people from Poland, of course? That's great. Wonderful. I also invite you, if you can maybe take a picture and share on your social media that you're here with us today and tag Liberty International. That'd be great. We have people from Phoenix, from Arizona. Of course, that's wonderful. We're going to be in Phoenix next month with the Project Arizona. That'll be great. All right. Dr. Per, thank you so much also for connecting, and we're going to start with you. And of course, this entire conversation about digital nomads and taxation first starts in the Austrian economic realm. And I wanted to ask you, from your expertise, from all the things that you've been also researching, how do you feel that the principles of the Austrian economics support the digital nomad lifestyle, particularly regarding the concepts of individual freedom and entrepreneurial action? Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. So from my perspective, Austrian economics is really just sound economics, and it's economics that describes the real world rather than use different types of formalized models or mathematics. So it's really about entrepreneurship at the very core. It's about how people can find their place in the world and make as much as possible out of their lives in the economy. And the very core of the market economy is just the exchange itself. As long as the exchange is voluntary between two parties or more parties, those parties expect to gain from it. So in every exchange that happens, as long as it's not coerced, as long as it's not forced, as long as it doesn't happen at the barrel of a gun, every exchange improves, in most cases, unless the parties are wrong in their expectations, every exchange improves both of their lives, which means, of course, that we should want people to exchange as much as possible. We want people to trade, whether they're in the same village or if they're in different parts of the world. It doesn't really matter. And for Liberty International, of course, that the world is our stage and the world is what we're targeting. So, of course, we don't want to limit trade and exchange between people regardless of where they are or who they are. This, of course, also means that in the considering it from a market perspective and the economy as a whole, our jobs, in order to maximize our position, is really to find the best possible position relative all other people and the resources available. Which means, of course, that we should inhabit whatever space where we can create as good lives as possible for ourselves, and where we can therefore make as much money as possible. Because if we think about it that way, in terms of the exchange, where you make most money, as long as you make it morally and legally, where you make most money, you contribute most service to others, because every exchange provides each party with benefits. So by trading with others, then you make other people better off, just as you yourself are making yourself better off. So the more trade you can engage in, the more exchange you can be in, the better it is. And that, of course, also means that if you can be in a situation where you can trade as freely as possible, as low cost as possible, that means that you can improve your own life to a great extent, while also at the same time then benefiting the rest of the world to the greatest possible extent. Now, this, of course, means that you have to create whatever value you can, the greatest value that is possible for you to create, and pursue doing so at the lowest costs possible. Which seems obvious in a sense, but that's not how most of us do it, because we tend to be more or less stuck with where family is, where friends are, where we're used to living, and so forth. But someone moving to another place to benefit themselves is really a benefit for everyone in the whole economy. So in terms of a digital nomad, you're really placing yourself physically in a space where you can, through whatever services you're selling and whatever services you're providing, benefit the world to the greatest possible extent, while benefiting yourself through exchange. And by placing yourself in a situation where you pay less taxes, which is typically the case, right? That just means that there's less cost involved for you to benefit other people through your services. So there's nothing immoral in paying less taxes, and there's as long as you don't break any laws, it's not illegal to avoid paying taxes. And I mean, that's what the index is about, trying to find those situations and those locations where you, as a contributor to the world in terms of value, can do so at the lowest possible tax burden. And it is really about finding, from an economist perspective, I mean, we're talking really about the best possible allocation of people in the world. And that has several different aspects. One is, of course, where do you want to live? Where would you benefit most? Are you a person who loves it to be in the mountains with snow, or do you want to be on a beach? Or do you want to be on the prairie, as I am myself in Oklahoma? Or where can you provide the best benefit and the best value possible for other people? With digital technology, of course, and the internet and so forth, many of us can be in whatever place we choose to, and therefore choosing a place where you pay as little as possible in order to produce the value, including taxes, is a benefit for you and your customers. And of course, for the local area where you choose to reside as well. So seen from this perspective, digital nomadism is really about finding out where you can serve mankind to the best possible extent while serving yourself. And I think that is the beauty of the marketplace and the beauty of entrepreneurship too, that there are really no contradictions, and there's nothing immoral in pursuing your own best life, because that's also, in terms of your income, that's how you serve other people best.
Thank you so much for that. And I think it comes down to what you were mentioning on that personal decisions, like what do I prefer? Do I prefer the prairie? Do I prefer to be by the mountains? Do I prefer to be near the ocean? And I think that for many of you maybe coming to this topic for the first time about digital nomads, it might seem like a buzzword that has taken on this whole meaning after 2020, after the pandemic times. But actually, this term was first coined by Makimoto in 1997 And he was doing this prediction. He's an economist, and he was doing this prediction of saying the nature of human beings is to be able to travel, to be nomads. But the modern lifestyle had restricted that type of lifestyle. But then now with technology and internet and all of this, we are breaking again those limitations. And actually what we find so interesting about digital nomads is not so much about, we're talking about the economy, the tax freedom and all of this. They're kind of like a freedom flag, but this is also a phenomenon that is taking over the world. Maybe this is not the lifestyle that you may want, but it's definitely something that is here to stay. And Dr. Per has also been a wonderful mentor on this journey that we've had here at Liberty International with this index. And I wanted to ask you as well, Per, on this topic of entrepreneurship and the restrictions that governments are imposing kind of like on today's life, the way that we're seeing it. How do you think, to what extent do you think that entrepreneurial freedom of digital nomads can be sustained as the government adapts the tax policies to accommodate or regulate this growing demographic that is becoming not just a buzzword, but that is becoming this cultural phenomenon?
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of a cat and mouse game where the government is sort of following the money, because the government, in my experience, is probably the greediest of institutions in the world, and they want our money. I think what is a benefit of, and also a strong argument for digital nomadism, is that you're really playing institutions against each other. So you're choosing the institutions that fit you best, and that's not necessarily the lowest possible tax rate. It can be other regulations as well. And we've seen throughout history and throughout the history of the economy, really, that institutional competition is important in order to not only make institutions more effective and better and more efficient, but also in terms of liberating people. So it used to be the case in Europe a couple of hundred years ago, when you had many small states, when Germany was hundreds of different countries under different monarchs typically, and what it meant was that whenever some ruler decided on jacking up taxes or regulating, what happened was that people left. They moved somewhere else. And so this, I think moving somewhere else is really a great way of controlling the government and the state, and it's a burdens that it places on us. And of course, the state and the rulers of the state, they don't like this. They want to follow us and keep getting our money. And if you, of course, if you break the law, then they're going to come after you, and they're going to try to get rid of as many loopholes as possible. But the thing is that they can't really, at least not in democracies, they can't really stop you from traveling, and they can't stop you from being in some place you want to be for a little while. So if you're a tourist, or if you're a tourist for a little longer and you bring your laptop, there's not really a difference between the two. And if you make the world your home, you can easily play governments and play rules against each other, and thereby minimize the burden on you, and therefore also showing and leading the way for others to do the same thing, while giving a strong signal to governments all over the world that you and others prefer lower tax rates to higher tax rates, and less regulation to more regulation. And I think that is a very, very strong signal, much stronger than voting in elections. Is simply voting with your legs or with your feet, just getting out of there if it gets too bad.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Per. Siobhan here is writing on the Q&A, and she's saying, so well said. Thank you. I feel I agree with everything he says. And to everyone here on this webinar, remember that you can leave your comments and your questions on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions you can start sending, please do so. We'll be answering all of your questions at the end of the panel. And any comment that you have, you can place it right there. Thank you so much to the ones already sending those questions. Great, thank you so much. Now I'm going over to Christoph and to to kind of like keep talking about what Per was mentioning on governments following kind of like the money, but also that we have the opportunity to vote with our feet and start moving, and that we don't need to depend on a location completely. I want us to talk a little bit about the flag theory, and this is a strategy for achieving personal freedom and financial freedom by diversifying multiple aspects of our economy in different countries. It's kind of like planting flags in different jurisdictions so that we as individuals can reduce, kind of like that government control. So, Christoph, I would like to know, how does this flag theory provide a framework for digital nomads seeking that tax efficiency and personal freedom in your own personal experience?
Yeah, I mean, the flag theory, like you said, is a strategy to live more freely. Yeah, and many, basically, I think every citizen in the world can take advantage of the flag theory. But of course, digital nomads have the most opportunities to really use it, to really make the most of it. So what means a flag? A flag is basically an aspect of your life which you can outsource to other countries. So like the most typical flags are generally the citizenship, the residency, tax residency, where the company is based, the bank account, and the playground, we say. Yeah, that's the place where you live, where you can live your passions and so on. But you can extend it to many other flags, for example, where your children are born, where your partner is from, where your employees are based, where you set up your, domain or email server to have more freedom of speech or data protection. So it can extend to many other areas. And our world is big. There is 266 autonomous territories in the world, which can make their own laws in regards of taxes and so on. I've personally been to almost 260 of them, so not much left until I've visited them all. And this basically means a myriad of opportunities, to outsource your life to other jurisdictions. And you really see a specialization. There are some jurisdictions which are very bad for one flag, but at the same time very good for another flag. And there are some jurisdictions which are bad for any flags, and there are some which are good for almost any flag. So you really have to think about it. For example, if you want a very good jurisdiction for having your server base with a lot of freedom of speech and good data protection, you rather go to Scandinavian countries like Iceland or Norway. However, you don't want to go there if you like warm weather or if you don't want to pay any taxes, because they have high taxation. So for this, you go to other countries. But the main thing to understand is that it's not too much about countries. Generally, as a digital nomad, we want to travel. We want to live in more than one location per year anyway. And that's the big thing many people don't understand. You don't need a tax residency. I always ask to my clients, I always tell my clients, you can emigrate without immigrating. That's my typical slogan. Don't make the mistake of leaving a country to get into a new country, which is maybe better in some aspects. But generally, you just change the system from one system to another. And if you do it right, you can just stay outside the system. And as Per already said, you are a tourist. And that's the great thing about it. We generally speak, I don't like the term digital nomad too much. I generally speak of myself as a perpetual traveler, PT. That also stands for one, prior taxpayer, PT, prior taxpayer, and also for permanent tourist. You are a permanent tourist. And from this current global tax perspective, you can be a permanent tourist up to 6 months in most countries of the world. Basically, every country has their own tax laws. Sometimes you can be taxed earlier than staying 6 months, by just having a property there, for example, or local clients and so on. But generally, in most countries of the world, you can stay up to 6 months as a tourist or not be taxed. And maybe that's changing in future and it's only 3 months or 2 months. But still, by just moving around a bit more, you can still be considered a tourist and thus, continue living the tax-free lifestyle.
Okay, that's very, I love this topic, and I feel it's also very futuristic to talk about a tax-free life. And as you were mentioning, Christoph, one of the main issues of digital nomads is the tax residency. And I think this whole research also put us on the perspective of thinking not only about the digital nomad lifestyle and the phenomenon that we're having, but also on the tax system that we are living under in different countries, and how even though we have digital nomad visas all around the world, the tax systems are very similar, and they're based mainly what you're saying, the tax residency. Where are you most of the time? Here from YAFO Institute, they're asking how is digital nomad different from remote work? We can say they kind of like intersect. If you're a digital nomad, it means that you're traveling most of the time, at least maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, couple times a year. And remote work, you can do it if you're like have a family and you're staying home on the same place. You are a remote worker. I'll say not all digital nomads are remote workers, but most remote workers are digital nomads. And to keep talking about this, Christoph, how do you think that digital nomads and this whole phenomenon can balance their desire for personal sovereignty with the need to stay and comply with a complex international tax laws? Because you were saying, like as Per was also mentioning, we're kind of like tourists and we're shopping for the best place to be economically. Mm-hmm. But how can most digital nomads, and in your experience, balance that personal sovereignty versus the international tax law, and how to do it on a secure way, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important to understand that you still can have a residency and remain a perpetual traveler with all advantages. Yeah, it's just important to understand it doesn't need to be a tax residency. Yeah, so basically every digital nomad, at least after a while, should get something I call a compliance residency or a paper residency. So you just got documents from certain countries. Me, for example, I have a paper residency, a permanent residency in Panama and Paraguay, in Georgia, in the UAE, in Dubai, possibly soon in some other countries like South Africa, Philippines, whatever. You can all get a residency permit in these countries. Yeah, you can live there for basically all the time if you want to, but you don't need to live there. You don't even have a minimum stay if you select the right programs. And these residency permits give you a local tax number. Sometimes you can get a tax number in other ways as well, of course, but generally a residency permit helps with that. You can organize an address. Yeah, the banks usually ask for a utility bill or other kind of proof of residency, and you can just set up these setups in different parts of the world, sometimes even without a residence permit. Yeah, I would say ideal, and I basically know no one doing it, except some followers of me. You have like 4 or 5 different residencies you can use for different reasons. Yeah, for example, you have one tax haven residency which just secures you. Yeah, for example, Paraguay is a great place. Basically, everyone in the world can immigrate to Paraguay without much conditions. You're tax-free on foreign income if you trigger a tax residency. It's actually possible to trigger a tax residency and still be tax-free by just doing some local stuff. So you even get a tax residency certificate from Paraguay without spending much time there. So that's a great tax haven residency. Then, for example, it makes sense to have a residence in the European Union. The European Union has a lot of disadvantages, but it has also some advantages in terms of banking and in terms of local platforms you can only use with an EU residency. Yeah, so for that, it makes sense to have, for example, a flat in Spain, because Spain doesn't tax you by having a flat there. And for me, a big market is the United States. Yeah, actually, the US is a great for non-Americans as well. If you have LLC, you can build up a credit score in the US. You can get great credit cards, even loans with very low interest. That's a big topic we usually have as perpetual travelers. So it's easily possible to pay no taxes in the US and still having an address, a house, whatever there. Yeah, and maybe have a residency in an upcoming country like a BRIC state, South Africa, for example, or Brazil. So just, the more you have, the better. But generally, for most people, it's fine to have at least one. And that's what most people, stay with. But it's always possible to get more. Yeah, like I said, there's 266 countries.
That's a lot, and tons of ways to optimize our taxes and kind of like follow that flag theory. We have here someone from Germany saying, happy to see Christoph, have heard about his company and on the Chainless Life podcast. So little promotion there as well. Thanks so much for connecting. And now for both of you, for both Per and Christoph, do you think that after everything that we've talked about, do you think there'll be a global shift towards recognizing kind of like digital nomadism as a legitimate and protected lifestyle? If so, what changes do you expect to see in the future? Also, throughout our research, we found that there's not a very positive image of digital nomads, and we also understand sometimes this type of lifestyles can come from, well, we can say a privileged background, but as well, there are many visas, and I'll show you in a little bit, that do not require you to have a really high income. So I want to get your insights for both Dr. Per and Christoph. Let's go first with Dr. Per.
Okay, well, that's a very hard question to answer, but I think what we're seeing is that the world is headed in two directions at once. Where many of the already developed countries, and led by the United States, are trying to crack down on tax avoidance as much as possible. And I mean, if you're an American citizen or even have a permanent residency here in the US, you can't really go anywhere else and make money tax-free, even if the rules there are such. But there are international tax treaties that say that if you live somewhere else and you pay taxes there, or if you live somewhere else and for a longer time and don't pay taxes there, then you don't pay taxes in the home country. That treaty does not apply to Americans. And the US can do this, and I think the EU is probably trying to do something like this too, but with less military muscle. So I think the rich countries that are sort of losing out in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship, they're trying to crack down, which is a death sentence, really. Whereas you have many of the other countries are opening up because they want to attract people with skills and people with expertise and knowledge, and with a customer base as well. So I think you're seeing a lot of the other countries, not the old countries, if you will, that are opening up instead. And I think the real outcome of this is simply that the West, so to speak, are losing out and will have to reform and accept it. Maybe not as a digital nomads as a protected class. I don't think that, but I do see that the economy overall is headed towards what sometimes is called the gig economy, where we work when we want to and for whom we want to, and we provide whatever service we can, and we do it sort of not on an employment basis where we work 40 hours a week for the same guy Monday through Friday. Instead, we work when we want to and from where we want to. And this puts additional pressure on the Western countries to open up. And then, of course, they're fighting it now, but I think that is just the initial phase or the initial stage. They will be forced to, especially with millennials and Gen Zers, when they're moving to other countries and they simply are not at home at all, because that means they pay taxes, so they can enjoy life instead. Then it becomes a struggle instead of how to attract them to come back home and spend time at home to pay taxes, which requires that these countries deregulate and cut taxes, or people will simply not come home. So I think short term it might not look great, especially for the West. In the little longer term, yes, this is going to open up quite a bit, I think.
Thank you so much. Christoph, María?
Yeah, I think if you see the recent developments in also Western countries, there's a lot of hope. Many countries, and I mean, it's kind of a political battle as well. But if there's like a more right-wing government, they often make interesting policies to stay more competitive in the tech space. I just read about last week, Portugal announced to basically make everyone below under the age of 35 tax-free, up to like 28,000 euros. That's not much, but I mean, it's a low-wage country, and basically everyone working a normal job or freelancing a bit will be tax-free in Portugal under a certain age, and that definitely helps to keep the people in Portugal or get them back to Portugal. So that's a great development. Yeah, and you see it in other countries in Europe, like Italy, which has now, for example, we pay like 5% up to 85,000 euros revenue. That's a great freelance regime. Yeah, in Germany, you pay already 45% income tax at that sums. And many other European countries have nice exemptions for small entrepreneurs. And small sometimes means up to like 1 million euros. So there's definitely things happening. And yes, there's a lot of countries also introducing this digital nomad visas just because they think they can draw nomads to those countries. Yeah, the big issue is, I would say, most people won't use these visas. They just come on a tourist visa. It's much easier. It's much less regulated. But sometimes even these nomad visas can have advantages. Yeah, there's certain countries, for example, who say you can stay here up to 1 year or even 2 years and still don't pay any taxes. So actually the digital nomad visa is your way to live permanently in the country without paying taxes. So that can be a nice development as well and just broadens your global options. So generally, I would say there is like per set, many Western countries have a lot of initiatives in the last years to like reduce this tax evasion, but on the other hand, there's always new opportunities, and it's just it's a nice can you say checks and powers, a nice balance, and it's not tipping in favor of the big governments. I would say I think it gets better, even also in terms of banking and many other opportunities over the last years, and it's getting better in future as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, I also keep a very positive perspective on the future. And also after the research that we developed, we've seen that most countries are behaving on a free market logic to be able to attract people and seeing kind of like this as, demand and offer. And there's many ways to...
Maybe one more interesting thought about this, and this also applies to many other like free things, like for example, cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin. Basically, in order to prohibit Bitcoin or to completely stop Bitcoin, you need to stop every country in the world using it. If there's only one tiny country like El Salvador or now Argentina or whatever, who keeps Bitcoin and runs the system over the country and provides exchange to fiat currencies, it's unstoppable. And it's the same about digital nomads. If there's only one country from these 266 autonomous territories which provides a nice environment for digital nomads, then this will not be able to prohibit. Then we will always have digital nomads. And like Bitcoin, like cryptocurrencies, it's a $1 trillion market with digital nomads, and there will always be countries serving this.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for that example. Definitely, it's like Bitcoin, and the future is bright. And as long as we keep talking about this and also creating research and around this topic, I think that's going to be really great. Dr. Per and Christoph, thank you so much for the comments, for answering the questions. I'm getting a couple questions from the audience that we're going to go through those in a couple minutes. First, I want to share the insights from the index, from the Digital Nomad Tax Freedom Index, in which we're evaluating tax friendliness across countries for digital nomads. This is aligned with Liberty International's mission that we want to make freedom a global matter. So freedom is not only about the things that we are thinking, the way that we are expressing them, but also how free are we to move around, how free are we to also trade our services, goods, etc., and how that aligns with this lifestyle of the digital nomads at this phenomenon. So just a little bit of a map here for you guys to show you. We evaluated 40 countries around the world. As you can see, the best ones are located here in the Caribbean. We have a couple ones in Europe as well, and also a couple ones in Asia. And this goes back to me saying that countries are starting to behave in a free market logic towards this topic because they want to attract certain people. The countries that you see in red, they still have the digital nomad visa, but the requirements are much more strict. So before showing you the results, I just want to talk a little bit about the index composition, how we calculated this. You can see that the tax rate, and if you do become a tax resident, as Christoph was mentioning, this is a weight of 40%. That's the most important thing that we are evaluating in our index. Then we research the process. How easy it is to apply to these visas? can you apply online? Do you have to go to an embassy? Is the information clear online? And we did all this research precisely online, thinking of people who want to apply to one of these visas and they cannot go to an embassy. Is it easy to access this information? Is the information clear, or there are like gray lines on the processes? And then the stay length, how long can you stay in a country with one of these visas without have to pay taxes or with paying taxes? And finally, the income, we wanted to add this dimension to show how accessible are some visas. Of course, if you go into Dubai, they're gonna ask you $5,000 a month to show that you're earning this. But if you go to other countries in the Caribbean, South America, they might just ask you around $1,000 a month of income, and that makes it more accessible for you to embrace maybe this lifestyle of a digital nomad, and also for us to be studying this as a benefit. So maybe not so interesting or sexy information about normalization and measurements. You can learn more about this on our website. I know Alba and Chica are gonna help me to send it on the chat, so you guys can also access our website and see the full report. So some of the key findings that we have is, I just want to mention a couple things really fast. The global trend, and is most countries that have a digital nomad visa have a zero tax rate, and the streamlined visa processes are really easy. So they score, of course, the highest. And high tax country, they have a tax higher than 50%, usually have complex visa processes, and they are going to rank lower. So we did see that there's a correlation between the tax and how easy the process is. How much like the countries want to receive people within their borders. And we also identified that half of the countries avoid the automatic tax residency once people get the visa. And this trend is very supported towards legislation, as we were seeing, that you do not have to be a tax resident in a certain country with these visas. And on the top performers, Ecuador came on first place. They have a low income requirement, and you can select up to 2 years. Malta came on the second place, and they have a very easy, streamlined visa process, and they have great tax benefits. So it's a really great destination to be. And finally, Albania, it's on the top 5, but I wanted to include Albania here because this is like an exception to the things that we saw. And it's that Albania has a tax rate of around 15%, but it ranks so well due to its long stay options and user-friendly visa processes. So what we're talking also kind of like on the panel, even if these countries have some sort of tax, they're still very attractive for people because of their benefits and because of their user-friendly visa processes. During this research, we did a couple of interviews to digital nomads, and one of them, he's in Estonia, and he mentioned, like, I feel happy to pay taxes here because the things are so well that they're giving me here that it's just perfect for me to be here, and I'm happy to pay those taxes, which was very interesting for me as a libertarian to hear that. Just showing you the top and bottom performers right here. Czech Republic came last, followed by Greece, Cyprus, and Georgia. Namibia, this is mainly because of high tax rates and the visa processes, as we mentioned. And here's our top 5. And finally, here's the complete index. I'm going to leave this on the screen for our assistants. Can find your country or maybe not find it. And if you want to, again, share the results on social media and tag us at Liberty International so more people can know. And maybe you find an interesting country here that you haven't thought of in your digital nomad journey as well. Or maybe a country that you like to get to see and start your own journey as a digital nomad within all of this. Before moving to the questions, I want to give a special thanks to our team, Alba, Chique, they've been supporting us, building the website, having these reports like very beautiful, and also on the background from this webinar. So thank you so much, you guys, and to all the Liberty International team for the support. I'm gonna go with the questions. So if you have more questions, please start putting them on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I have the first one from David. This is either for Dr. Per or Christoph. Does any of you do something with volitional scientists, entrepreneurs to solve problems that eliminate reasons for taxation? Example, percentage as you earn, mutual medical insurance, and all the free market of human investments, etc. If you want to answer, and also Mary, if you want to jump here, answer some questions, that would be great. I think you guys can also read them on the thing. Oh, for Dr. Per, Christoph, does any of you do something with volitional science entrepreneurs to solve problems that eliminate reasons for taxations?
I don't get the question yet, so maybe you can repeat it or reframe it.
Yeah, he's asking about this company called Volitional Science Entrepreneurs, and their main thing is to solve problems that eliminate reasons for taxation. So he's saying, for example, insurance, investments, HR. Have you heard of this company, Volitional? I'm gonna write it in the chat.
I didn't hear about it, but of course it's nice that such companies exist. And I think there will always be reasons for taxation. There's always, of course, there's other opportunities for governments to charge money or just print it. But for some of the tax base, they will always need some kind of fees. And there's only a few countries who can completely avoid it, of course. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Christoph. We have another one here from Jose, and I think this is mainly to Dr. Per. What's like your position when we talk about countries like Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korean dictators that they want to keep people within, I mean, they don't care if people leave their countries because they want the country just for themselves. In all this framework of digital nomads, what would you say to that argument?
Well, I don't think it is true in the longer term. So I disagree with Jose there. I do think that they are dictators, at least in the beginning, are very okay with opponents and opposition leaving the country, just to not have them around. It's a benefit for them, I suppose. But the thing is, they're also in it for the wealth. Nobody wants to be a dictator of just outright poverty, where you cannot extract wealth from the domestic economy either. So I think for most countries there might be some exceptions, or at least for temporary exceptions, but for most rulers, whether they're democratic or dictators, they're in it for the money and for the fame and the glory. So if people start leaving and the country falls into poverty, then that is not necessarily a short-term problem, but it's going to be a long-term problem. And it's going to be a long-term problem also because if you don't grow and you don't create more wealth and the standard of living is falling, whereas it is increasing in the rest of the world, that's a greater incentive for your own population, meaning the people you are a dictator over, to leave, which means you can have a severe depopulation, and they don't want the country, the land, themselves. They want the riches, and they want the wealth, and they want people to look up to them. And if there is no people, then that's a problem. We see this in many dictatorships, right, throughout history, where it's not the case that they gladly let people leave. They tend to lock people up and make sure that they stay in the country. The Berlin Wall was not, as they said, to keep Westerners out from defecting to communism. It was to keep people in so that they couldn't leave for Western Germany. And this is a problem that all dictatorships suffer from, because, well, it's really part of what dictator means, that you're not a nice guy to begin with. And since you are controlling the economy, you also don't have economic growth and a lot of prosperity. So everybody is going to suffer as a result. So temporarily they might think it's a good thing, but they will soon realize that, whoops, we need to stop people because we need them to work here to just uphold our own prosperity.
Definitely. I think what countries want is for you to stay inside of their own borders, right? Max here is asking more on the digital nomad topic and the fulfill the need to community and connection. If one does not have a base of roots where to reside, and if this lifestyle is mostly appropriate for people with no family and people that do not seek to have a community. And Max, I'll disagree. I've been a digital nomad for about 4 years, and the closest friends that I have today, I met them through this journey, and it's wonderful to have such a strong network in different parts of the country. And I think in this, I'll go back to Liberty International, because I met this network of Liberty International in Mongolia in 2018, 2019, and I realized they were already nomads, and they met once a year in different parts of the country to have this amazing conference and to create these long-lasting relations. I invite you all to Dallas this year to get that experience. And in most popular destinations for digital nomads, you'll find community-based events and all of this. And it's a different way to think about community, and it's definitely a different way to create friends. But the most digital nomads that I've met, they have great relationships and they have great community. Christoph, I don't know if you also want to comment on that.
Yes, obviously. I mean, for me personally, contrast to my studies at university and so on, my social relationships not only quantified a lot, but also the quality got much higher. I have a lot of good friends I can see every time I want. Yeah, I meet them multiple times a year in different locations and have nice experience with them. Yeah, it's important to remember you are mobile and you are flexible as a digital nomad. If you lack social relationships, then go change your situation. Like you said, there's so many communities all around the world you can join. And it's really about your own decision, I would say. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a bit different from what you're doing. Yeah, if you have, like me, a big community of people, I'm quite happy. And that's actually one of the reasons I'm traveling to so much exotic destinations, that I don't have to meet people. Yeah, when I'm in Dubai, 50 people want to meet me. I'm happy I don't have to meet them all. But of course, if you're doing some job without people, just like coding or something like that, and then you're an introvert guy, then of course you might have more issues with that lifestyle. But even then, you have those nice communities like Liberty International, where it's quite easy to meet people, I would say.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for that, Christoph. I'm seeing a couple of questions here about the index and countries that you guys are not seeing. We're going to be updating the index every 3 months. The countries that you're not seeing is because you could not apply for a digital nomad visa during 2024. We made the last code around August. I see someone asking about Japan. We're going to include Japan in our next issue by the end of the year or January. So that's why I'm asking you, please go to social media, follow us, register for our newsletter so you can get the updates when we make them. And well, I have a question here from someone in the UK saying how to avoid banks pestering us to keep telling them which country are we tax residents in. She's saying she's in the UK and she's very open about where she's traveling, but she's still very on point with her taxes, but she keeps getting this harassment from banks. I think, Christoph, will be your recommendation with that?
Yes, of course, you have to have some kind of compliance residency for banks, a utility bill, a tax number, maybe even a residency permit to keep them happy. And then it, of course, depends where the bank is. Yeah, sometimes if you are in an obvious tax haven, the bank will close down your account. So it's always sometimes better to have your compliance somewhere in the European Union, for example, which has just higher recognition for certain banks. But as I said, having, for example, a flat in Italy or in Spain doesn't necessarily make you taxable there, but you still get all the documents you need for the banking, yeah?
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I have another question here. Is it possible to live a nomad life and not have a tax resident for an extended period of time, as long as you do not trigger the tax resident in any country? I think it is possible. You're still flying under the radar.
It's possible. I'm doing it myself for 10 years now. I don't have a tax residency for 10 years. I could have one in Paraguay, but the use of it internationally is doubtful. But I don't have a tax residency. Yeah? I never had one. I never paid taxes, so to speak. And it's generally possible. It just depends on the nationality. Americans can do it because of citizenship-based taxation. All other nationalities can generally do it, but it's sometimes depending on their previous residency. For example, some residents in Europe, like Spain or Portugal, they will only leave you out of your tax residency if you prove a new tax residency. So sometimes you need to prove a new one, but if you do it in the right country, then you can get out of there without any obligations. For example, Germany or Austria works well for that. There's a lot of other like restrictions, exit taxes, and so on. We don't have time to discuss this, but for this purpose, for example, moving briefly to Germany or Austria can be a good point.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. I see a bunch of questions on what's the best country to start as a digital nomad, what's the best country to create a company if I want to be a digital nomad, and all of these questions. I wish we had more time to keep developing on this, but if you want to know more about it, please go follow Dr. Per and Christoph on social media and under the internet personas. You'll get more information on that. I also, please go visit our website portal. We have the complete report on the numbers and on the index. If you have a specific question about a certain country, go ahead. We are already live on our website, so you can go and download that report. And then you can get all the answers to those little questions that we are not able to answer here because of time. But you can like view the index here, see the methodology, and as well as download the full report where you have answers to all of those things. And if you have more questions, we're always available on social media and by email, so you can send us all these questions. Thank you so much, Christoph and Dr. Per, for this amazing talk. I'm so sad that Mike couldn't connect, but sometimes that's also the tricky part of being a digital nomad and being traveling the world. The internet is sometimes not so reliable. And again, thank you so much for joining us and in shaping the future of tax freedom. If you want to know more about our initiatives and if you want to keep having these amazing, insightful conversations, I'll see you all in Dallas this year. That'll be amazing. And I want to invite Dr. Mary Ruwer here again to say a couple more words so we can finish this. And thank you everyone who connected today. I truly appreciate your presence here. So Dr. Mary, we'll go back to you.
Yes, it's a great presentation. And I'd just like to thank all the panelists and of course you, Maria. There were a lot of things that we talked about earlier on. I want to talk about just a couple more. If you liked this presentation and want to know more about financial freedom, Liberty International does put out courses on that so that you can learn more at a greater depth. And we just finished a financial freedom course. I think it's going to be showing up on Udemy. And we have more of an introductory course that's already there. If you'd like to know more about that, of course, you can contact us and we can give you more details. And I'm going to ask Maria to, when she sends you the recording, to go ahead and give those links to our social media, to our website, and of course, to our conference website. I'll say some of the infighting and uncomfortableness you might see in the Libertarian Party. I want you to be sure and come and get a different feeling with us because we pride ourselves on discussing the tough issues, but doing it in a way that is very non-confrontational. So I'd like to invite you. You can see on the screen the promo, and you can find this detail at our website, liwc24.us. That's LI, like Liberty International, WC, World Conference, 24, like 2024.us. liwc24.us. So I hope you'll join us in Dallas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's actually Grapevine where we are, but it's a little suburb and kind of an interesting one at that. And as I said, I'm going to ask Maria to include a lot of links for you, including the ones that Christoph had for you, and compare Bylund's most recent book, because if you're into the idea of Austrian economics but don't want to read a tome, you might enjoy his book very much. He has a very good way of putting things very, very understandably if you're not into deep economic philosophies. So I encourage that, and I hope you'll join us at our conference if you can. If not, go to our website, learn more about us, and perhaps you would like to get involved in one of our upcoming courses. The next one will be mental and emotional freedom. I'll be involved in that course, and that will probably be early next year. So thank you for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Don't hesitate to contact us if you need more information. And Maria, do you have any final words?
Well, good, Mary. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for your kind comments and answers. Saying this was a great event. Thank you for the webinar. You will be getting the recording of the webinar really soon. So if you want to rewatch it or someone missed it, you'll have that and all the links that Mary mentioned. Thank you so much again, and everyone have a great day. Ciao.
Bye-bye.